We're going to talk about Ricky Gervais. We're going to talk about Ricky Gervais because he is joining the ranks of Dave Chappelle, of somebody that I don't even think the comedy is all that great. But
I put the bloody Bible in the bloody fiction section.
Mary does a fantastic British impression. She does. So I'm just, thank you. I think that the biggest crime is that the jokes are actually very pedestrian. It's like I'm going to make some jokes about members of the LGBTQIA plus community, but he's like, but I don't want to make too many jokes. So he's like, I will give him credit that he's standing up for what he believes in, and he's still making the jokes. But I don't think that the jokes are even all that entertaining.
They're really not that funny,
no.
Unless you're not used to hearing jokes that subvert your expectations in any way. If you're used to listening to like Amy Schumer, I'm sure if you watch Ricky Gervais, it's like, whoa.
Oh, there it is.
It's a crisis party.
We hit.
Oh,
there it is.
You.
Oh, rock and roll. I just got a 20 in my cup of coffee.
No.
Perfect.
This is no joke.
See? There it is.
You.
See? It's right there.
Dude, look at this wild action. All day, every day.
We
Let's
should maybe
go.
implement some sirens. Thank you.
Thank you. I definitely want to see, like, we could, Carter make, like, a theme that's, like, a siren-esque theme. Thank you, guys. Like, it's like a police siren, and it's like singing, like it's like him singing
like
pop culture.
Something
crisis.
on a wire that like slides by in the background. That'd be crazy.
That would be perfect.
Yes.
So we will implement music. So we're gonna have to talk to Carter about that. Like, just put a boombox right here. We'll do a lo-fi and just put a boombox right here and program it. So it says the British comedian is under fire this week because of some of the content in his latest stand-up show, Supernature. In one part of the show, Gervais spoke about the transgender community, the social commentary about them, and urged trans women to quote, lose the C word. Very, very...
not that C word, the other C word.
The other C word. So it says, oh, women, not all women. I mean, the old-fashioned ones, the one with wombs, those effing dinosaurs, she said in the Netflix special. I love the new women. They're great, aren't they? The new ones we've been seeing lately, the ones with beards and C words.
Beep.
Like, they're jokes, but they're kind of just like...
And when you hear it in his accent in your head, it's just like, Ricky. It's just so tired, to me at least.
Is it funnier to British people?
No, I don't think. I think it's actually universal. I think they think of it as universal now, and I do kind of have questions. It's like one of the things we talk about in society is like every time something like this happens, they get called out. I tried to make a distinction to her the other day. Like if you look at articles and you pay attention to what words they use to describe how it was done, and they say that he made jokes that mocked the transgender community, and then. Other articles, they'll make fun of other people and say poked fun at. Those are very separate words with very different connotations. So the idea behind saying that he mocked them is it kind of insinuates a level of derision, and I don't think that that's what we're seeing here. But I think that people are so scared of offending the people of that community that everything is taken as mocking. When I don't think that's
possibly protected group.
Yeah, and that's one of the things people talked about. Was going to be one of the problems when we created protected classes, is that eventually the question's always like, if you want to know who's in power, look at who you're not allowed to criticize. And you're not really allowed to, or at least you can. Like he always says, he goes, a lot of people, he had a tweet where he said, people say that you can't make jokes anymore, and I rebuked that. Basically saying like, you just have to be brave and make the jokes anyways and understand that you're going to get a lot of pushback.
You just have to have the balls to take the pushback. But also, like, I don't know if I totally agree with that because of the censorship issue. Like, if you're getting censored from telling certain jokes on a private platform, then I wouldn't consider that one of the natural consequences. That shouldn't have to happen.
I actually had an interesting, like, I refrain from posting political anything on any of my social medias. I don't like arguing with people. I don't have the interest in doing it. If you want to have those discussions in person, I will absolutely do that, because you can actually find some semblance of, like, you find common ground in person much more easily. But I posted the old, it was like an old Carlin quote where he talks about fascism and censoring speech is just, I forget the quote off the top of my. Do anybody remember that quote off the top of their head? Somebody have to look into it. Where he's just talking about is about speech and fascism, and somebody said to me, they're like, if nothing, like if there's no violence for your as a reaction to your comments, then that's not fascism. And I said, well, no. Any amount of any abnormal amount of like pushback, like if they try to get you fired from your job for making jokes, I do think there's a fair amount of comment to be made about, like, is that a proportional response? Does that make it somewhat fascistic? And I don't want to get into the politics of this. I'm just saying that the response from people these days is nowhere near proportional.
He said political correctness is fascism pretending to be manners.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. Okay, so he's like, no, because basically saying like if there's no, if nobody's going to be violent with you for your, for not being politically correct, that's not what that is. I said no, but if somebody says you're not being politically correct, I'm going to call your job and get you fired. What is that?
Yeah,
it's not liberalism.
And to someone like Ricky Gervais, how would that ever happen? He's not an ordinary person. He doesn't have to worry about it.
Yes, he's not a good example of like the regular. He's not Joe Schmo 32,
right?
As we know,
Joe Schmo 32 is the smallest minority. The individual.
Yes.
Joe Schmo 32.
So I think the biggest problem here is that the jokes just aren't that funny. That's his that's his biggest crime.
And his accent.
Did you guys see the show? It's a lot of it with Ricky's his delivery.
I watched the clip.
You liked it?
I didn't see it.
You didn't.
So it says
I just like his delivery in general with like The Office and stuff.
It's a lot. See, I've argued with people. I was like, I prefer British
Office.
Yeah.
It was good.
It was good.
From what I remember,
I watched the whole thing, but it was a little more serious in the tone. It was more like dry humor.
Did you see it first?
No, I saw the U.S. first.
So here's where he goes, full disclosure, in real life, of course, I support trans rights. I support all human rights, and trans rights are human rights. He's right. But I'm saying is like, you cannot, it can't be just a zero-sum game. You can't either support somebody and then only support them. You have to be, if we're going to be in an equal society, you have to be able to make jokes. That's what brings people together in my book. Like, the hardest part of explaining this is like the reason you can get along with other people is that you're fair game, they're fair game, they're fair game for humor, right? You're going to be inherently disconnected from someone if you feel like you can say stuff about them, but they can't say stuff about you. Mm-hmm. They can say stuff about you, but you can't say stuff about them. How do you connect with someone if you don't feel like you're on an even playing field as a society?
I think we were on like a high point with that in the 90s.
Absolutely.
Probably.
I get like, there are some moments like if someone had lost a leg in combat or something and you're like, oh, look at that leg, and you make some joke about that. That's like, come on. I mean, there's humor where you're making someone else the butt of your joke, and then there's humor where you're just making everyone laugh by pointing out how ridiculous stuff is.
And we tend to talk a lot about like never apologize to the group, only apologize to individuals.
And I think he might have even said something, you may be going on with the story, that he was actually more digging into the movement, the trans movement, this socio-political movement.
He distinguishes between people of that. He's like, I don't have a problem with trans people or LGBTQIA people. I have a problem with activists and activist
but the
ideology.
fact that he even needs to do this like whole caveat where he needs to go back and retroactively defend himself over jokes is just like stupid. And he's making it worse for himself. It's
well, I'm saying like if he's doing interviews, if he's on a press junket now, with the special come out, it's going to get brought up. What's he supposed to say? No comment. Like that's not going to play well either. It kind of corners him in a way. Like he doesn't have a way out of this now because he's going to have to talk about it whenever he does press. And I think that this is actually one of the things that's Chappelle has to be careful for, and he will have to be careful for as well. It's like, don't pigeonhole yourself into just comedy about this. Continue to evolve, continue to diversify your comedic portfolio as you get older, but don't become like just the guy who makes fun of this group or just the guy who makes fun of that group. Make fun of everybody. That's what everybody should be. You should be willing to get made fun of so that you can also make fun of everybody else. That's kind of the beauty of a free society.
Yeah.
So it says the comments did not go down well on social media, with one Twitter user saying, Supernature just wasn't funny for me. We're past using it's a joke as an excuse for being offensive. I do love the people who whenever these people watch them, like, did they actually think they were going to go into this and like it? Being aware of who he is. Like, did any of these people go into watching a Chappelle special and not expect to be offended?
like I was going in expecting to have a fun time with a bayonet in my pocket.
Yes,
like,
the guy who attacked Dave Chappelle was like,
let's not even pretend that wasn't premeditated.
Yeah, it says a second added. I mean, this isn't really. This really isn't like a joke. If you agree with this worldview, then you're going to laugh and go, ha ha. Yes, he said a thing I agree with, and that I feel isn't openly said, and that's as deep as it goes. I actually kind of agree with that. Like I'm saying, like the jokes weren't artfully. It's not deep humor. It's not some great insight into the culture or into that community. It's just kind of lowbrow jokes that a bunch of bros will make at like a bar on a Friday night if they feel safe enough in that area to make those comments. Like the tragedy is that he's not actually able to be funnier about it.
Right. Like, why is that the only thing that it takes now to get people to laugh?
Yep.
Ricky he's the guy that would go to the Oscars. I think he was hosting the Oscars and would be like, "Oh, where's Harvey Weinstein?"
Yeah.
Everyone, and he's like, "You all know what he's been doing."
Yep.
And then it's like everyone's like, "Oh God, it's Ricky Gervais." I mean, he's so honest but funny. And then he's like, "Come on, you know it's what I'm talking about is real. Come on." And then obviously it is. He's great at pointing out the ridiculousness in reality. He's so good at it. The Office was one of the most genius television shows of all time. To be honest, I think one of the most genius television shows of all time. So good that they spun off another version of it with the American Office,
which somehow became even more cult. Like there's people that don't know that there's a UK Office. Like it
is so good, and it spawned a genre of single camera comedy too as well. Like I think Parks. I don't know if Parks and Recs was single camera or not. Maybe that wasn't.
But it has its own genre of comedy, a community,
sort of
awkward, looking at the camera, kind of.
So it says, my target wasn't trans folk, but trans activist ideology. I've always confronted dogma that oppresses people and limits freedom of expression, Gervais said. I think that the same comedians who would have called out the church if they felt that the church was doing so in the 90s, or the same people who called out the war machine in the early 2000s who were willing to comment on that, should feel free to comment on this. But for some reason, they don't. And I think that says a lot about the world we live in.
I thought it was good that he mentioned freedom of expression, because he is an advocate of freedom of expression, not only for people that are trans to express the way they feel without being hurt, but also that he's allowed to express the way he feels about what they're doing. Obviously. Mm-hmm.
And I think that like the sad part is the people who aren't activists, who happen to just be members of this group, who are just like, look, you're ruining it for the rest of us who just want to live normal lives and be normal people, and you're ruining it by making every time somebody says a couple of jokes, you act like the end of the world, like it's the end of the world. The term I kept hearing was harm reduction. Like this comedy's harming people, and I'm like, how do you quantify what entertainment does to harm society? One could make the argument that we're seeing a lot of cultural decay in the last 40 to 50 years as entertainment has changed. A lot of people have talked about since Columbine, like what has changed since the Columbine age? Like why is society seem like it's gotten so much sicker? And a lot of people draw parallels to just how violent, how sexualized our entertainment is, and they draw parallels there. Can you actually make that comparison? I don't know. I think that that's worth exploring, but but does that mean that we should limit their ability to make their comments on the world?
At this stage, no. As long as it's not violating the law, I don't think so. I think the problem is pharmaceuticals that we're hitting kids like 14-year-olds with stuff like Wellbutrin and crap, and then kids are overly sensitive, and then if they grow up and they're 21 and they're overly sensitive, and someone makes a joke about something they identify with, they say that you're the one offending me, but it's actually you're the one that's choosing to feel offended by what's happening in the world around you. I mean, honestly, big animals want to eat you. Deal with it. Yep. It's offensive, you could say, but I mean, they still want to eat you.
It is like, I mean, and we used to say like, oh, these kids will never make it in the real world, but clearly they're in the real world and they're getting jobs.
They're not making it.
Well, no, they're getting jobs in your human resources department and changing the world to fit how they see things, rather than, that's why you have all the people with the sensitivity seminars and stuff like that. So the world is actually changing to meet their needs, not ours. Right. And that is
it's a disservice to all parties involved,
and it shows that we've grown. I mean, maybe it's because America is just too wealthy, we've had it easy for so long here that people don't know what actual struggle is. Like that's a part of it is like if you don't have to worry, like even people that are like, I'll never be able to own a home, I'm like, yeah, but you still get to eat at the end of every day, right? Like there was a comedian, of all things, a comedian who said America's the only country where you'll find fat homeless people. The only country, because we have a welfare state that will take care of you even if you are at the lowest ends of society. So if we have taken care of each other, if we have evolved to a point where we are so easily taken care of, then everything that comes to hurt your feelings will feel like a struggle.
I was on food stamps for a little while, and when I was in New York living in my car while we were starting mines, I didn't have any money, but I was able to get some $200 a week or whatever it was in food. But one of the things that was so weird is I could buy Pepsi with it.
Yeah.
Pepsi. Yep. It's not food. It's sugar's a drug, in my opinion. It's dangerous. It's addictive. It's highly addictive. But people can buy that with government-funded food stamps that we're paying for with our taxes. And like, if you don't think that that's damaging society to allow people to ingest that stuff with government money,
meat.
Yep.
Now that's pretty good.
Have
you had that stuff yet?
I have before. I didn't know it was good.
It's tasty.
I mean, I thought it was like mediocre.
I wasn't eating a lot of meat at the time. I don't expect it to be meat or even taste like meat. It's just a new kind of food. It's like a pea protein.
Sure.
If you think of it that way.
Yeah.
I like it.
Were there super chats? There was a couple of them.
Keenan Smith is addressing Mr. Chris Poole here, saying any chance to set up an app game where a robot assistant for the desktop that only members can control for 30 seconds per $50 super chat. This is getting very convoluted. You'll have to take that up with Chris Poole, though.
Dude, like every day something new gets added in here, and like it just becomes like it's becoming more and more like a crazy sci-fi show in here.
The gamification.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. Like this started with just like cameras. And just the studio lights in this, and now there's all this automation.
It'd be cool if we took this show up in orbit, like low orbit, and then the super chats could change the gravity. The specific gravity, but the gravity of the orbit, so that we'd be either like tighter to the ground or we'd start to float.
We need Tim to talk to Elon and make that happen now.
Also, Newt said, "You guys are great."
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
There were some others, weren't there?
Yeah, there's. I thought there was.
I think that was it.
Okay.
I got to say, the backgrounds really look great on this show. I'm watching it on YouTube as well right now.
Yep.
Stunning.
It gives it a little bit more depth and color
pizzazz,
to it. So
yes,
pizzazz. How do you spell pizzazz? Is that 3 Z's? 4 Z's?
I'm gonna land on 3. What do you think?
It's 4 total.
You'll have to look that up.
That's a lot of Z's.
I had a pizzazz pizza oven in college.
Oh,
I did.
I remember that.
I did. Yes, it's like it's
what?
it's like
an easy bake.
Yeah. Well, no, it's just for pizza. It's
Yo,
like now
super
they make
chat now. Would you give your date easy bake oven
pizza.
Brownies or pizza?
Yeah, well, yeah. You have to prove. She has to prove that she'll love you for richer or poorer.
How far are you into the relationship before you pull out the easy bake oven?
Yeah, I guess it depends on how old you are. How many relationships you've been through? Because eventually you don't want to wait. You just go right to the easy bake.
We had a discussion yesterday because there was a talk when Hannah Claire a couple months ago was like, when do you take a date to Noodles and Company? I'm like, you don't take a date to Noodles and Company. You go to Noodles and Company after you go to Target. Like it's like it's not a date spot, and we had a whole
argument. Very
Target
contentious.
is the date spot.
Yeah, we had a whole office debate, and then we levied that on the chat yesterday.
What's the best corporation to take a date to?
What is
Google?
The
Google
best
headquarters?
big tech.
Yeah,
platform.
free lunch.
You just go to Google headquarters. I'm taking her to Uber headquarters because we can Uber there.
Okay,
we'll
I'm
do that.
thinking Amazon. No bathroom breaks.
Amazon HQ.
No bathroom breaks at Amazon. She's got to stay with you the majority of the time. Then she can't slip away either.
Spend
if
as
the
much
meal
time
is bad.
together as possible.
Yes. There was one more.
Yes, Hava Owen says, not only does Ian surprise me, but he inspires me to be better. Pop Culture Crisis has to be one of my favorite shows. We need more.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hava Owens.
Thank you. And we 5 days a week, and that's I don't know if we could do 7 days a week. I need a day off. I need a day off here and there. Once in
Mr.
a
E
while.
said, "I'll super chat $1,000 if Ian cuts his hair on stream."
You
could cut just a millimeter.
Just a piece? Oh wait, I think you're locked in now. If I just cut this off,
you can specify, dude.
Yeah.
It's time for that 1,000. Fork it over.
Weasel words. That's weasel words. We called that.
I actually have a film script that I've been looking at that I may end up doing. And it called for me to shave my head, which is part of why I haven't done it over the last couple of years. But I was told the director I don't want to cut my hair, and they're like, "You don't have to cut your hair, man."
I remember in the show Graceland, there was a character played by Brandon J. McLaren who had dreads down to here, and they waited till he was going to cut him off, and then they found a way to work it into the storyline.
Yeah,
to cut it off.
I've got these split ends. I haven't cut this in 4 years or something, but the split ends are keeping it from getting longer than this length.
Yeah.
So I think Kara wants to cut the tips.
So it'll keep growing?
Yeah, so we can grow it all the way down to my back, to my lower back.
Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.